And welcome back to TVW's live coverage of Sine Die 2024. On the final day of the legislative session, I am now joined by State Representative Jim Walsh, also State Republican Party Chairman. Representative Walsh, thank you for your time today. You're also the sponsor of the 6 initiatives, 3 of which will become law in 90 days, 3 of which go to the voters in November. So what are your main takeaways from the session? I'm guessing the initiatives.
Oh, without a doubt. The initiatives were a game changer in this short session this year. As you mentioned, we ended up moving 3 of them through the legislative process, so they become law directly now. They do not go to the people for a vote, and that's a good thing. That's a win. We were able to get through the legislature and into law the prospective new policy, clarifying policy, that Washington State will not have a tax based on personal income. A lot of people think that's already the law. A lot of people think that an income tax at the state level is prohibited by the Constitution. That's not true. The Constitution would allow a personal income tax if it were flat, if it were uniform on all class of asset. What is prohibited by the state constitution, of course, is a graduated or progressive tax based on personal income. What initiative, the 2111, Initiative 2111 clarifies is no state income tax of any sort, flat or progressive. So it's a good thing. It's a clarifying initiative. It strengthens and clarifies the existing state law and policy on personal income taxes. The other one that went through and became law, or I should say is becoming law, is the initiative that creates a Washington Parents' Bill of Rights. This is a little bit of a controversy around it. Some believe that it does more than it does. It hurts or changes other existing law. It really doesn't. It's a focus on notification. It's a focus on parents and legal guardians, family members who are custodial of a minor child, getting information about what that minor child is experiencing, primarily at school, but also in certain medical or healthcare environments. And it focuses on the knowledge, on the information, and says that no agency of the state or no other organization can tell a parent, a custodial parent, that they won't say what's happening to that parent's minor child. They have to say what's happening. Now, it doesn't change what our state calls the mature minor doctrine. That remains in place, and a child under 18 can still receive certain kinds of medical care, mental health care, and other types of services without the prior permission of a parent or legal guardian. That remains in place. What changes is the parent or guardian must be notified, must be told, must be made aware that these services are being provided. And I think that's essential to defend parents and children and families and allow parents to make the best decisions for their children with full knowledge of what the child's experiencing. And then the third initiative that passed into law, probably the most important, is the initiative that restores reasonable police pursuits in Washington. For the past several years, our public safety and just safe neighborhoods in Washington have been besieged by bad policy coming out of this building that restricted law enforcement's ability to enforce the law by pursuing bad guys. And what this initiative does is it restores law enforcement's ability to pursue.
The other 3 initiatives that will be on the ballot in November, 2 of those, the one which would prohibit cap and trade policies in the future and eliminate the related portions of the Climate Commitment Act now, and then the capital gains tax repeal. Supporters of those policies in the legislature have argued that those will be devastating cuts for programs and impact various transportation-related resources, child care programs, and basically just take a big whack at the budget. What's your perspective on that?
Those claims are false. That's fear-mongering, and that is spinning the effects of these good reforms. The initiatives that go to the people for the vote in November, you can vote yes on them without worrying about these so-called devastating cuts to the essential services of the state. That isn't true. These reforms do not affect negatively any essential service of the state government. They certainly don't affect anything having to do with roads and bridge maintenance. It's even strange to me that some are making that claim because that's so easily refuted. That is specifically not so. Climate Commitment Act, the cap and trade tax scheme, those resources are not bound by the state's 18th Amendment to the state constitution. They are not directed at road and bridge maintenance, or what the Constitution calls highway maintenance. They are used primarily for other sorts of things that are not road and bridge maintenance. So that claim particularly surprises me because it's so easily falsifiable.
Do you see the fact that 6 initiatives were qualified, several of which specifically target sort of recent Democratic policy priorities as some sort of signal? I mean, what is your perspective on getting 6 initiatives certified for the ballot?
It's been a great run. I mean, we've had good success because these 6 points in policy, which are heavy on tax reform, but also do some things like we mentioned with the law enforcement issues and the family parental notification issues, are wildly popular. I mean, they had no problem getting the signatures to qualify and proceed through the process. In fact, we ended up getting far more signatures than we needed to qualify them. And their popularity, their support crosses all demographics, male, female, any kind of race, all geographic portions of the state. They are broadly and widely popular because the policies that they are reforming are not. And what this building needs to do more, if there's a lesson in the 6 initiatives, what this building needs to do more is it needs to listen to the people more. And my colleagues and I and everyone in this building need to remember they serve the people of Washington. They don't rule the people of Washington.
To sort of encapsulate what I was asking about and maybe put it in a different context, Republicans have had a harder time in some districts over the last several years. Lost ground in some of the key suburbs, gained ground in others, which your district.
Where I live, we're gaining ground.
So, but anyway, there haven't been big coups or sweeps. I mean, there was at one point the Senate Majority Coalition Caucus, 2018, that went away, and then basically there's been this, it's an uphill battle for the R's in Washington. But the initiatives, like you said, sort of had plenty of signatures to qualify. How do you account for that? Have you already explained that with your previous answer? Is there some,
maybe a little bit.
tension there?
No, I get your question. Look, politics and economies and human endeavors always follow patterns. They follow cycles. And the pendulum, the political pendulum in this state, swung very far in one direction, and now it's swinging back toward the middle. And ultimately, I think that's a healthy thing. I think the best policy decisions for the people, for the most people, are made when the middle ground is where we're talking. And for too long, we've been on one side of that policy spectrum, of that field. And we're moving back toward the middle now, and that's a healthy thing and a good thing. And I think the people of this state, as the pendulum swings back and as the one-party dominance of political discussions ends, I think we will get better results. I think we will get better tax policy. I think we will get better public safety, crime-fighting policy. I think the school performance will improve. All of these metrics are what the people care about, what they watch. And they don't like the direction things have been going. I mean, crime is up, school performance is down, taxes are up across the board, as is the cost of living. And now it's time to right all of that and bring cost of living back under control, improve school performance, and fight crime effectively. And these are not Republican or Democrat issues. These are common sense issues. And that's, I think, where we're heading, and that's a good thing.
I want to ask about the controversy over the Secretary of State's office's contract with a company that sort of, the idea or intent is to scan for election-related misinformation or security threats, that sort of thing. Some of the activity by that company caught the attention of, for example, Republicans in Washington and some of the reporters who have been written about stories and comments. What's your take on that and what happened there?
Well, I mean, it's no secret I'm on their list. They've been tracking my social media posts. It is a bad situation on many levels. First of all, this firm that the state has contracted with is not based in the United States. It's a UK British firm. And I don't think that's a great idea. I think if they're going to do cyber snooping, they ought to do it with a domestic firm. Shoot, we've got a lot of cybersecurity firms right here in Washington they could contract with. That's one thing, but put that aside. This matter of misinformation, disinformation, I mean, that is an easily weaponized space. And I think that the state, the government, the apparatus of our state needs to move very carefully when engaged in managing misinformation and disinformation. One person's misinformation is another person's essential information. And disinformation, as I'm sure you know, that's an old Cold War Soviet spy craft term. I don't think that belongs in our public policy here in Washington. Now, election security, that's another matter. We want our elections to be secure, of course, and that is a reasonable activity for the state government to be involved in. But managing misinformation and disinformation, you run right up against both federal and state constitutional problems there. And the constitutions protect us from this kind of thing. I want to emphasize that the Washington State Constitution protects what it calls absolute freedom of conscience. That is a thing that the federal drafters of the federal Constitution considered putting in the Fed Constitution and weren't able to get it in when the nation was founded. The state's founders thought it was important enough to put that in Article 1 of the state Constitution. Absolute freedom of conscience. Our state is supposed to protect everyone's absolute freedom of conscience. And when you get into this murky business of managing misinformation and disinformation, I think you run afoul of the government's charge to protect absolute freedom of conscience. People must be allowed to believe what they believe and be secure in their own conscience.
With sort of, I guess, time running low here for the rest of this interview, what from the 2024 session do you think will have the greatest impact on the greatest number of people besides the initiatives, good or bad?
Well, the budget negotiations, of course, in this short session, we negotiate supplemental budgets. And always keep in mind 3 budgets in our state, operating, the big one, transportation, and capital. I'm encouraged that the capital and transportation budgets were very bipartisan, and I think they went in a very good direction to good results. The operating budget remains more partisan. And when we talk about that pendulum in politics swinging back toward the middle, we need more middle in our operating budget. As your viewers know, our government, state government spending has doubled in less than a decade. We're at $70 billion for a 2-year operating budget right now. That's a lot of money. And we're blessed in that our economy has been robust enough that it has generated enough tax revenue to fund that. In fact, we're still in surplus. But I think we need to watch how fast we grow that budget. And we need to make our budget decisions in a more fiscally prudent way, as we are doing with the other 2 budgets. We need to make the operating budget, the big one, more bipartisan. I think we'll see, I hope we'll see a move toward that. And then a last thought, really in the last days here in Olympia, we passed a very controversial bill to begin the process of restricting or banning the use of natural gas, particularly with this bill that was passed in the Puget Sound region. That's a mistake. And I think that bill that went through in a very strange way, maybe some constitutional issues there with it, I think that bill is going to turn out to be a mistake. and not good for consumers, not good for the energy grid. And I think a year from now, we're going to be having a conversation that proposal, that bill, House Bill 1589, was a mistake and should not have passed the legislature.
We will have to leave it there. Thank you again, Representative Jim Walsh, also State Republican Party Chairman. Thanks for your time on Sine Die.
It's always good to talk to you, and it's kind of a nerd fest here at the Capitol on the last day of the session.
Inside baseball. Still ahead, we will be back after a break. Our next guest is Democratic Representative April Berg. Stay tuned.